In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use custom code inside your N8N automations and give you 3 examples of where code can help improve your workflows. I'm Owen. I've got more than 15 years experience as a software engineer, and I'm here to help share knowledge about AI, coding, and automation. There are many times when you're building an automation that you need to do something that the platform you're using just doesn't have a built-in integration for. There are going to be times where there's no solution to the problem that you face that doesn't involve multiple complex workarounds. Thankfully, in N8N, we can write our own custom code to solve many problems, and this is one of the most useful and underrated features in N8N. Even if you're new to writing code, learning the basics isn't that hard, and it's going to really level up your automations if you can write custom code with inside N8N. So let's dive in. All right, so the automation we're going to be using in this demo is essentially an automation that will go to YouTube, and for a given number of channels, it will extract all of the video titles and it will put them into a Google spreadsheet. And so the reason we might want to do this is if we're generating a prompt that will generate YouTube titles for us, we want to collect a load of really good examples that we can use. And the other reason you might do this is if you're researching your competitors and you want video ideas, you can just grab all of the titles from a particular YouTube channel, compile them into a spreadsheet, and then generate ideas from that spreadsheet. Okay, so the way this automation works, we have a code block here, which essentially what this does is it just has a list of channels that we want to research. It then, for each of those channels, it will pass it into a YouTube node, which will grab all of the video titles. It'll grab all of the information about the video, and then it will format the titles in the way we want them to be formatted. And then it will filter out videos that were created in the last 90 days. And then finally, we'll put them into a spreadsheet. All right, so I have a spreadsheet here and it has 3 columns. It has a channel name, a title, and a created field. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run this automation for a single channel. You could also do this for multiple channels, but let's just do it for one. The channel we're going to use is called the AI grid. This has lots of really great YouTube titles, and we can draw a lot of inspiration and learn a lot by studying these titles, essentially. So to get the channel ID, you need to click on the More icon. And if you click on Share Channel and find the Copy Channel ID button. So we're going to bring this into our static data node, and we're going to paste in the channel. And when we run this code block, essentially what happens is we return the channel output. Then we're going to iterate through those and then send them off to YouTube. So let's run the workflow. All right, that executed successfully. And if we go back to our spreadsheet, you can see here we have a spreadsheet full of titles. Okay, so this all looks good. All right, so we're going to go and build this automation from scratch now. So we have a manual trigger. And the next thing we're going to do is add a code block. The code allows you to run custom JavaScript or Python code. There's 2 languages you can select from, JavaScript or Python. Python support is in beta and it can run a little bit more slowly than JavaScript, so I recommend using JavaScript for now. And you can see here, this is the code that we're going to run. So there's a couple of predefined variables. Input.all, essentially this grabs all of the input that's come into this particular step. So for our first example, what we're going to do is just have some static data. So this is the first use case. We just want to return a list of channels, but we want to return a custom data structure. And we can do this just using the code block. So we have a return a JSON object with channels, and then essentially a list of the channels that we want to process. Okay, so if we run this step, we should just get that data back as output. So that's perfect. And what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through each of these channels. So we're going to use a node called split out. And what this is going to do is we're going to iterate on every one of these channels that we generated. So if we run this, this is running once. And when we use the split out functionality, it should run twice. So essentially for each of these channels, we're looping once. All right. And so the next thing we want to do is connect this to the YouTube node. And we're going to select the Get Many Videos option. I already have a credential set up, but in order to save time, I'm going to skip this step, but you will need to configure a credential to connect with. We're going to select the resource as video. We're going to use the operation as Get Many, and we're going to set the limit to 50. We're going to filter by channel ID. This is essentially the channel ID we want to pass in. And then we're going to also add an order by date fields as well, just so we're getting the videos in the date order. So let's pass in the channel ID to this automation. We're just going to pass this in directly. This is the channel IDs that we've put in the previous step. And when we run this, what we should get is a list of YouTube videos for all of these channels. If we go back and we run this workflow end to end, we should get a list of 100 items, because if you remember, there are 50 YouTube video titles that we're essentially returning from the API, but we're doing that twice. We're doing it once for each of these channels in the list. All right, so let's simplify this for now and just use one channel. All right, so then once we have the channels, the next thing we want to do is put these into a Google spreadsheet. So let's do a spreadsheet, Google Sheets. We're going to append or update a row in a sheet. Let's just clean this sheet to make sure it's ready. All right, so now we have our empty spreadsheet. And let's add the Google Sheets node. We're going to append or update a row, and the document is video titles. This is the spreadsheet I just created, and it's called Sheet 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert the channel name, the title, and when it was created. So the channel name is the channel title down here, the AI grid. The title of the video is here, the title. And the video was created at this timestamp here, which is published at. Okay, perfect. And we're going to match on the title. So the reason we're using a match on title operation here is that we want to make sure that if we run this automation multiple times, if the video title already exists in the spreadsheet, we don't want to add that multiple times. We only want to add it once. So that's essentially what this is doing. And now if you run this end to end, okay, perfect. We have now updated our spreadsheet. We've collected all of the YouTube titles, and we could now use this to either generate video ideas from or to generate a prompt. But there are a couple of problems with the titles that we need to fix. So the problem is that the YouTube API is returning these funny HTML escape characters, and we want to remove these. We want to make sure we formatted our titles in our spreadsheet correctly. The problem is, this is a great example where there is no built-in automation to fix this problem inside N8N. So without using a code block, there is no obvious way to solve this problem. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add in a code block that will essentially remove these funny characters and replace them with the correct characters. In this example, this is a HTML escape code for a quote. So you can imagine what should be there as the quotation, the apostrophe. So let's go back into N8N and let's use code to fix this. There's no other way to solve this problem easily, and code is a great way to solve this. All right, so for this first example, we're just going to take a look at a snippet of code that will solve this problem for us. So the problem is the input that we have is a string with these HTML escape characters in it. We want to remove these and return a string that looks like this, how you'd expect the string to look. So I've created a JavaScript function that, given a string, it will replace those characters with the correct symbol. And so what this does is then for all of the inputs that you put in, it will escape those characters. Let's just run this code just to show you what this does. Okay, so we're going to add a code block in the middle here. And we're going to just replace all of this with the example I just gave. So what this is going to do is for all of the input here, we're going to find the item.json.snippet.title, which is the item JSON snippet title. And then for each title, we're going to apply this function to it. And we're just going to see what that looks like. Okay, so perfect. So it's done what we want. It's basically taken this title, and the Microsoft CEO, you can see here, it's actually fixed and corrected the title. So this is just a great example of using code inside your automations to solve a problem that there isn't really an obvious solution for. The other thing we want to do as well is make sure that we formatted our titles correctly. So if you look at different YouTube channels, you may notice that everyone formats their titles in a slightly inconsistent or different way. So for example, here, the YouTube channel I found here, they've formatted their titles as kind of, lowercase. These aren't consistent with how we want our titles. So if you look at the AI grid, they've got title case, the first letter in each of these words is capitalized. So code is a great way to solve this problem. We can have basically a formatter that will take in any kind of arbitrary title and then format it exactly the way we want it to be formatted. Okay, so here's the next example, which is formatting text. So the input is a title that is not formatted correctly. There are very basic string operations inside N8N. So for example, we can have a to lowercase or to title case operation. Very basic, and it will do most of what we need. But there are going to be cases where the built-in operations don't do exactly what you want. And this is just another great example where code can really, really help you. So for example, in this specific case of a YouTube title, what we want is to make sure these sections which are capitalized are really important. They're drawing emphasis in the title. And if we were to use a basic operation like to title case, what that would do is it would turn this not into, first letter capitalized, but the rest of it lowercase, which is not what we want. So in order to format the titles as we want them to be formatted, we need to build our own custom logic or custom solution. So again, I have a function here which will basically take in a title, which is going to be this. And what it will do is it will format it as title case. So the first character of each of these words will be uppercase. But if the entire word is uppercase, like not in this example, we're just going to leave that alone. And we're going to essentially, for each of the items, we're going to get the title, when it was published, the channel name, and we're going to basically run that function. So we're going to escape the HTML and we're going to format the title as we want. And then as the output, we're going to return the title, the published, and the channel. But the title is going to be formatted exactly how we want with all of the HTML characters removed. And we're just going to return that as a result. If you feel a bit overwhelmed by some of these code examples, one of the things you can do is go to Claude and it will give you guidance. So you can say, for example, to Claude, give me a JavaScript function that will escape HTML characters. Often that will get you 90% of the way there, and you may be able to solve many of your problems doing that. Okay, so we're going to use this entire code block. And we're going to update our code here. And if you notice here, we're just returning the titles here, but we actually need to return more data. We need the title, the published date, and the channel. So that's why we're creating our own custom data structure within this code snippet. So let's run that snippet of code. And you should see now what we've got as the input is a larger blob of data with the titles incorrectly formatted. And when we run it through this code block, we get a smaller subset of the data, but with the titles formatted exactly how we want them. So these are looking good. You can see here, this is an example where it's formatted it correctly. So the stunning and everything, this is a really important element of the title. We want to draw emphasis to certain words by putting them as fully uppercase. And this has allowed us to retain that sort of nuance of the title. Okay, so that's working fine. We just need to go and update this section again now to bring in the new data that we have. So we're going to copy across the title. Oh, actually, sorry, one more thing we need to do here is we need to add a split out node. So again, we need to split out the data set. And we're going to split the results. And then now we should be able to add these in correctly. So let's just run the previous step. So what we want to do is have the formatted title, the date it was published or created, and also the channel ID. So this should be working fine. And then one other thing we want to do here in this automation, just to finish it off, is we only want to select videos that were created in the last 30 days. And the way you can do that is by adding a filter. So let's add it let's add it here at this section. So we're going to add a filter. So this filter is going to remove certain items any videos that weren't published in the last, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months. So what we're going to do is bring in the published at, then we're going to say date and time. Then we're going to say is after. And then we need to put in a bit of logic here. So what we're going to say is now minus 3 months. So we're going to say, make sure the video published date was greater than 3 months ago, essentially. If we test this step, okay, there's a mistake here. What have I done wrong? Date and time is after. Okay, so I need to make that an expression, sorry. Okay, so this needs to be an expression, and we can say now, so this is dynamically going to always update to the date that was 3 months in the past, basically. So now if you run that step, it's kept all of them. Let's do that to 1 month. That seems a little bit suspicious. Let's just double check. Okay, that seems to have worked fine. So what we're saying here is any videos published in the last month, it's kept 15 of them that were published in the last month, and it's discarded 35 of them which were published, greater than a month ago. And then we're going to add those, do the rest of the operations. So let's see if there's anything else we need to fix. I think everything else is good. And let's just test this workflow end to end. Okay, actually, I'm just going to go and clear the data set just one more time to make sure that we can see everything. So let me just run this workflow end to end. So we have an empty sheet, and then you can see we've populated this with all of the videos published by the AI grid in the last month. We've got the titles now in the format that we want. Everything is looking really, really good. And so the final thing we're going to do is generate a prompt. So I'm going to start a new chat with Claude. And what we're going to do is we're going to generate a prompt to create YouTube titles. So I'm going to paste in here a prompt that says, generate a prompt that takes an idea for a video as input. The prompt will generate an engaging YouTube title based on an example. Give me the prompt as output. Study the examples to understand what good titles look like. So this is why we have the data set. We can use that data set to understand what makes a good YouTube title, and then we can generate a prompt that will generate titles for us. So let's take the examples from here. And we're going to copy these examples into this prompt. Okay, and as you can see, it's given us a prompt. It says, generate 10 attention-grabbing YouTube titles for a video about this topic. And then it's given, follow these patterns for top-performing AI content. Use dramatic adjectives, include all caps words for emphasis. So it's basically studying the titles that we've given it, and it's figuring out what makes for a good YouTube title. So let's run this. Let's run this prompt. Okay, so let's run this prompt. We can insert a topic. So generate 10 attention-grabbing YouTube titles for a topic about how to use code with N8N as an example. And there you go. So you can see this is generating really interesting looking YouTube titles for us. N8N's hidden code feature will blow your mind. Slightly over the top, but these are good YouTube titles that we can now use for ideas, essentially. Okay, sometimes when you're not sure how to solve a problem with code, you can go to Claude, and it can often give you a good example or get you started with how to solve the problem. So let's take our example. We want to say, generate me a JavaScript function that runs inside N8N. The function should take a string as input and unescaped HTML characters. For example, here's our input string, and then we want to give it an output example. Give me a simple function that uses, give me a simple function to replace these characters. Okay, so it's given us two examples. The first one uses what's called DOM manipulation. Because N8N doesn't run inside a browser, you want to be careful whenever you see examples online that are talking about running inside a browser or using the DOM that runs inside a browser. So this is an example here. It's a simple function. It will essentially replace any of these characters inside your string. This looks like a great example. So you can actually just use Claude to solve the problem often. If you're not sure how to solve the problem, paste your problem into Claude and it will help you. The other thing you can do with Claude as well is if you do have any errors inside your automation. So say, for example, you do have some code here and it doesn't run correctly for some reason. So let's take an example here where we have some bad code and let's just run it. You can see here that there's like an error. So if you do get into a problem with your code, you can take the syntax error that is generated with inside N8N and you can paste it into Claude, and often it will give you guidance as to what the problem is. So what is this problem? So it's telling you this error happens at line 40 with this problematic code. It's telling you that a JavaScript object should be formatted in this manner. So it's actually telling you what the error is. There is also a built-in Ask AI function within the N8N code block, which again is super powerful. You can kind of ask AI how to solve the problem. It will give you kind of hints and ideas for solving it. Claude is another really good solution for this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.